Deham. Ujjvala-varana Gauravara-deham Nivasita Niravari Bhava-videham. Tribhuvana Pavana Kripayalesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sakshitanayam. Gadgadantara bhava vikaram Durjanna tarjanna nada vishalam. Bhava bhaya bhajanna karana karunam Tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanayam. Arunam bharadhara charu kapolam Induvanindittan akkachaya ruchiram. Jalpita nijaguna nama vinodam Tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanayam. Vigalitanayana Kamala Jaladharam Bhushana Navarasa Bhava Vikaram. Gati Ati Mantara Nritya Vilasam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam. Chanchala charu charana gati ruchiram Manjira ranjita pada juga madhuram. Chandra vinindita shitala varanam Tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanayam. Jataki dora kamandalu dandam Divyakale varamundita mundam. Durjana kalmasha dandana dandam Tam pranamami cha Shri Sachitanayam. Bhushana Bhurajjalakavalitam Kyampita Bindaravara Ruchiram Malayajja Virachitta Ujjalatilakam Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam Ninditaruna Kamaladalanayanam Ajanulam Bitta Shri Bhujajugalam Kalevara Kaishora Nartakavesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam Ujvara Varana Kura Varadeham Nivasita Nirabari Baba Videham Tribhuvana Pavana Kupaya Lesham Tam Pranamami Cha Shri Sachitanayam Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Gaurahari Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Sachinandana Jaya Gaurahari Hai Gaurahari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gaurahari Bo Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Now we're going to do the Guru Puja. And there are a few prayers that are very special that we can do at the beginning, and we'll say the translations for all of them as well. Namashishtam manamapi shachiputramatra sarupam Shirupam tasya grajamuri purim naturim goshtavatim Radha kundam girivaramoho radhika madhavasham Prapto yasya pratita kripaya. Let's try again. Namashishtam manamapi shachiputramatra sarupam Shirupam tasya grajam urupari maturim goshtavatim Radha kundam girivaramoho radhika madhavasham Prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shri Gurun Dhamnatosmi Hey Guru Jnanada Dinabandho Swaranda Data Karunaika Sindho Vrindavana Sinahita Vata Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara. Hey Dinabandho Karunaika Sindho Guru Prasadam Mayamanda Mudhe Raksha Parade Bahupapava Tatpada Padmestu Krishna Krishna. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, divine mantra, the service of the son of Shati Mata, the association of Srila Swarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother, Sanatan Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kund and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Sri Radhika and Madhava and Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and you are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of all fallen like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attaching to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by hearing English is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet, defend us for all. Sri Guru Charana Padma Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy Krishna Krishna Prapti Hoy Lokanath Lokera Divana Lokanath Lokera Jastu Shikti Bhuvana Jastu Shikti Bhuvana Prabhu Guru Doya Deya Mure Parachaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Namah Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Pristaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyareshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parigaj Gacharya Shrutarashti Shimad Abhay Charanara Binda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parigaj Gacharya Shrutarashti Shimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gogopina Shamakundra Rakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Nam Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shivani Devi, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Sambhira Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees. Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Welcome, everybody. This is the Hare Krishna. This is the forest of Naimisharanya. We're reenacting the pastime of the sages coming together to discuss the Srimad Bhagavatam. The sages who were looking for a path through the Vedas to elevate themselves in this world. But when they met Sutta Goswami, then they became convinced of the highest path, which is pure devotional service. So similarly, by the association of Srila Prabhupada, thousands, millions of people around the world who are convinced that the process of happiness in life would be economic development, for instance. When Prabhupada was first in India, after being in America for some time, he noted several times that people weren't coming, because already India was looking towards the West, thinking if we can just have industrialization, perfection of management, we get our supply chain going a little better, we got to lean into it a little harder and we'll be happy. Technical schools sprang up. Nehru thought that if we just have technical schools, we'll lead the world, and India has, and tech. But it didn't make any appreciable difference in the happiness of the people. As Prabhupada pointed out many times, you've forgotten what really makes you happy. And so Srimad Bhagavatam is an important reminder of the ways in which we can actually align ourselves with the highest purpose of life and feel completely satisfied by the process of pure devotional service. And hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is one of the 5 main processes of the path of bhakti, or devotional service. It's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam itself that just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, all of the obstacles within the heart are removed by the help of Krishna. He's the suhrit, or the best friend that we have. And when he sees that we're sincere about making advancement in devotional service, then he helps to remove the obstacles and give us a clear vision of the path going back home, back to Godhead. And so this is an unassailable service to sit and hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, the assembly of devotees in Naimisharanya. And we'll begin by singing a song that Srila Prabhupada introduced to the world. It's Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song about his own deities and about the spiritual world. Prabhupada said it's a complete summary of the spiritual world and the way that the devotees there are in loving relationships with one another. So in bhakti, just as in any form of yoga, we understand that the purpose is to control the mind. And in the Gita, Krishna says, Manmana bhava mat bhakto. I am the ultimate object of meditation. So fix your mind upon me. So there are 2 ways to fix the mind. One is by the will. Again and again, as Krishna says in the 6th chapter of the Gita, one may impose one's willpower, and bring the mind back to thinking of the object of one's meditation. Or there's also an emotional way in which we can bring our mind. It's more powerful when it comes from the heart. That is, if we develop a sense of love for Krishna, just like if you go to the Dham, and let's say you're in Jagannath Puri for a week, and then you suddenly feel overcome by the sense that this is my home. I don't want to leave it. And you become emotionally attached. Or you're coming and worshiping the deities. Here we have Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan. The name Madan Mohan means the one who attracts us away from the spiritual world. Because everyone's attracted here to beauty and wants to see some beautiful form. And the forms in this world, however, are a fake out, because they're just reflections of the spiritual world. So when we look at the forms here, we try to appreciate them, and then a few years later, You end up on the internet where people say, "You remember what they looked like? Now here's what they look like." You can gasp now, like, "Oh my God!" And the other person's trying to do plastic surgery, and it's like, "Oops, they blew it." It's like, now you look like a monster. So everything morphs in this world from being, "Oh, that looks very nice. I think I could enjoy that. Look, I could look at that for a long time," and then just a little while later, it's like, "What's wrong with it now?" It's like, it's not so nice anymore. And that's the difference between the material and spiritual energy. With Madan Mohan, he's increasingly attractive, and he calls our heart. So if through the process of bhakti, which means coming to the temple, ringing the bell, offering obeisances, taking a little charnamrita, circumambulating tulsi, all these devotional activities, they're otherworldly. It's like, why are you walking around a plant? And why are you taking a little sip of this or that, or ringing a bell and so forth? These are all activities on the spiritual platform. And after some time, we start to develop a sense of affection for them, attraction. Like, "Oh, I like that. Whatever it is, I want to do it again." And we come back again and again. And then when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, the Association of Devotees, then we start to understand why we're feeling that way. And it becomes well-reasoned attraction, well-reasoned love. In other words, it starts, what Bhagavatam says matches what our heart is telling us. And then we can put our whole heart into it, and we have this emotional attachment to the deities. So when we think of them, no matter where we are, you can be in Iowa, and then think, "Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, please save me. Please let me serve you here in Iowa, amidst the cornfields." And then, we feel that emotional attachment. And that emotional attachment grows more and more in the association of pure devotees. And then the impetus of life is that I want to just serve Krishna with nothing in return. I'm not asking for anything. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kavitam va jagadisha kame. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu set the example. He showed us the mood of the advancing devotee. So I don't want wealth, I don't want followers, I don't want to have some relationship that'll be on the cover of the magazine, because here I am, I'm Krishna, here's Radha, like we're really cool. We don't, the devotee's not into that. He just wants Madan Mohan. Radha Madan Mohan, it's like, that's my life and soul. And you'll find that in the proclamations of the great devotees, that they're just saying, Krishna, Radha and Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I'm only for them. And whatever they do, I'm still for them. That's it. I'm sold out. Like an animal gets sold to somebody and it's like, "Do you have any say in it?" "Nope, I don't have any say in it. I'm here. This is my master." This is the mood of somebody who surrenders in devotional service. And you may say, "Oh, that sounds like slavery or something like that." But maybe so, but it's divine slavery. And it's ultimately the most relishable experience, because that's our constitutional position, to be sold out to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Cent percent. And if it's cent percent, which means 100%, then we feel fully satisfied. Savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhaktira dhoksaje ahaituki apratiyata yatma suprasidati. Then the self feels happy, when it's 100%. And then there's no gap in between. There's no gap in between. I'm always doing devotional service. Whether I'm at work, at Intel or Google, I'm still doing devotional service, because one is thinking this work is for Krishna. And when I come home, then I take a bath, and I sit and I chant in my little temple room that I put up in my closet. And Krishna's here, Krishna's everywhere. And we go on with our practice of devotional service throughout this lifetime. And then gradually, whatever obstacle was there that was holding me back, I didn't have the strength. I knew what I wanted to do, but I couldn't do it. That gets removed gradually, and one feels, yes, now I'm stronger. I feel it myself. The process is working. And nothing succeeds like success. We feel it working, and then we say, yes, this is real. And then gradually, one gives one's heart fully to Krishna, and we can constantly think of him. And then the songs, like the one we're about to sing, is always attractive. It's not like, oh, we sang that before. and I'm not interested anymore. No, it becomes deeper and deeper. This is the spiritual sound vibration. Every time we sing it, it has new meaning, and it causes my heart to go closer to Krishna. So we'll sing this song, Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava. Did I start on the right? Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunda Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba, Jaya Giri Varadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba, Jaya Giri Varadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Balaba, Jaya Giri Varadhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Giri Varadhari. Jaya Jashoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana. Jaya Jashoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana. Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Giri Varadhari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha, Jaya Giri Varadhari. Jaya Jashoda Nandana, Jaya Braja Jana Ranjana. Jaya Jamuna Tiravanachari, Jaya Kunja Bihari. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye. We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This will be Canto 6, Chapter 15, beginning at text 1. And the circumstances are something that we might be able to relate to, in that when great trouble comes to our life, there's a way in which we look for higher ground. Before trouble comes, of course, there's always some trouble, but there's degrees. And when it gets so onerous that we can't stand it anymore, we try to reach out and find help. In the case of Chitraketu, he had a child after a long time. He had tried. It's important for a king to have a successor. It's one of the main duties of a king is to leave a successor so there's no gap. And so the son, through the law of primogeniture, takes up the position if he wants it. And the king couldn't have a son even though he had many wives. But then he got a benediction that from a sage who could arrange for a soul to be born in the womb of one of his wives. And that was done. But he warned the king that before you have this benediction, I want you to know that it may be troublesome as well. And he explained that the son would be called Harsha Shoka, which means the cause of your happiness and your lamentation. And the king reasoned, as do most people in the material world, that, yeah, well, that's the way it is, right? You got to take the good with the bad. And then joyfully he went ahead, and the queen gave birth to a son. There was a problem, as there usually is, and that is that the king gave more affection to that wife. The other queens also felt jealous that I could have had a son, but this one queen had a son. And they conspired. unimaginably, but actually we find these types of things happen in the material world. And they poisoned the infant. And so when the king and the queen heard about it, the maidservants in the palace were wailing when they saw that the child was no longer present in the body. And the queen came and she became inconsolate, and then the king came in from outside and saw the scene and then verified it for himself, and he couldn't remain conscious. So this is one of the difficulties of material life, is I become so attached to all my circumstances, whatever they may be, that when they change, then I feel this great pain in my heart. The great pain of death actually is the pain of losing what I thought I had. I don't have anything, actually. But I attach myself to many things in this world, say, this is mine, and this is my reality. It's like yesterday, and we prayed for them, the residents of Northern California. There was some old town there. It's been around, a historic town, people, what is it, Greenville or something? Greenville? We offer our prayers to all the residents of Greenville, that they may be safe and find shelter. But their whole town burned down suddenly. It's been there for years, and it's been their pride and joy. And now all of a sudden it's gone. And this is the basic premise of the material world. In fact, there's a saying in Bengali that describes the material experience in one sentence. I built this beautiful house for my enjoyment, and now it is burnt to the ground. The end. There's no extra after that. There's no footnote. That's just how it is. And eventually the whole material world burns to the ground. In fact, it's burning right now. In all its aspects, it's always being destroyed, falling apart. And if you try to take care of a house, you'll notice it, that it's always deteriorating. A car, always deteriorating. A little rust, next thing, the whole thing is enveloped. The whole material world is in the process of being destroyed, and yet I doggedly say, no, this is my home, I'm going to stay here. It's not my home, and these are not my people, only Krishna. So, and the devotees. So, Chitraketu had an abrupt change of consciousness because, first of all, he was informed, but he couldn't hear. And then when the great tragedy came, he became overwhelmed, and then there was what we call a teachable moment. So we should prepare ourselves for teachable moments because they don't come that often. And it's possible, actually, during the opportunity for a teachable moment that I'll ignore it and just say, I'll dull the pain some other way. But King Chitraketu was a great soul, and therefore he rose to the occasion, and so did his gurus. Narada and Angira came back to meet the king just at this time when he was most suffering. And they instructed him. They did so in a very special way. They had the power, the siddhi, to be able to bring that particular soul back into the body and speak to the parents. So when they brought the soul back in the body and they said, why is it that you've left so in such an untimely way? And, your parents are here for you. And the little jiva looked at them and said, sorry, I don't recognize you. I've had a lot of parents, and I've been in I travel throughout the whole material world from one body to the next. I'm a jiva. I'm not the body. And King Chitraketu then had a revelation that gave rise to a sense of determination in his heart that I'm going to follow the path of the saints. I'm going to rise above the material world. And when we get this impetus, it's a great mercy, actually. It may come to us in a variety of forms, by meeting a serious devotee, or a combination of having a very challenging time and then meeting a serious devotee, or after many lifetimes of going through the same thing over and over again, there's a feeling that has arisen in my heart where I'm going to really try for this. And I already started in my last life, so it seems natural in this life, like why would I get involved? But in any case, once one has that resolution within one's heart that I'm going to go to Krishna, then this is the most fortunate situation for the jiva soul. In the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna says, Narupamasye hatato palabhyate nanto nachadir nacha samprachishta ashvatamenam suvaruda bulam asanga shastrena jhirena chitva. So Krishna describes the whole material world as an entangling banyan tree. We can't understand where it comes from, or we can rather. It comes from a reflection of the spiritual world. But while we're in it, we can't see its form. We can't see where it begins or where it ends. We can hear about it and understand that I took a wrong turn. And so then Krishna says, you should cut off that tree with the strong weapon of detachment. Detachment means attachment to Krishna. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunjita nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchite prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastani mumukshavi parityago vairagyam palagukatite. When one learns the art of using everything for Madan Mohan, everything's for his service, for his pleasure, then we start to enjoy real sense gratification. Sarvapari nirmuktam taprapena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikeshana sevanam. We're doing sevana to please the senses of Krishna. And therefore, my senses get purified and I also feel satisfaction. A satisfaction I've never felt in the material, ever. I've tried for it, and I've tried, but I can't get no satisfaction. And so the soul who comes to this conclusion by association and then says chitva, then tatakpadam ta parimargitavyam. Parimargitavyam means now I'm free to go on parikram. Parimargitavyam, you go on the marg. Pari, you go the whole way on the marg. The whole marg. And where does that marg? It's a pathway to meet Krishna personally in the spiritual world. Parimargitavyam. So he's there in the spiritual world. And that's why Prabhupada wrote the book, On the Way to Krishna. That's the spiritual path. We're on the way to Krishna. But Krishna says in the Gita, before you really get on that path and you really want to walk it, you got to cut down the material tree. So we hear about Chitraketu and how successful he is in cutting down that tree. And we can probably relate also because he had a traumatic experience before he gave his heart to the process. It was so traumatic, it's unimaginable actually, the kind of pain and suffering that he went through and his wife went through, everybody. But then he found his way by the association of devotees. Oh boy, Fog City. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Vidatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, well, King Chitraketu, overcome by lamentation, lay like a dead body at the side of the dead body of his son. The two great sages, Narada and Angira, instructed him about spiritual consciousness as follows. O king, what relationship does the dead body for which you lament have with you, and what relationship do you have with him? You may say that you are now related as father and son, but do you think this relationship existed before? Does it truly exist now? Will it continue in the future? Purport: the instructions given by Narada and Angira are the true spiritual instructions for the illusioned, conditioned soul. This world is temporary, but because of our previous karma, we come here and accept bodies, creating temporary relationships in terms of society, friendship, love, nationality, and community, which are all finished at death. These temporary relationships did not exist in the past, nor will they exist in the future. Therefore, at the present moment, the so-called relationships are illusions. You're all young. What do you feel about these instructions? Do you think they're a little harsh? Or are they going right in? What is your reflection? Gita Priya? Just sit. They'll pass it to you. Let the microphones freely flow, please, through the room. Collect them. Trade them with your friends. There's one. Don't we have several? 2, 3. Okay, tell us. How do these instructions strike you as a young person?
I think the more at first, like when I first heard these instructions, I was kind of like, whoa, that's really deep and kind of abrupt and straight to the point, and it's kind of shaking, like because I've kind of, I think everyone grows up like thinking that their relationships with like friends, family is kind of very super important, but in this verse they're saying that they're all temporary. So I kind of, at first I was pretty shocked, but then the more I thought about it, the more I kind of like reflected and realized how true it was. Because in the end, like it says in the purport, it will all go away at death. And yeah, so it was kind of shocking and abrupt at first, but then the more I thought about it, the more I understood and related.
Thank you, Gita Priya. Now, Malini, as her mother, how do you feel when you're imparting such instructions to such a tender-hearted child? Not a child anymore, but you have been imparting such instructions since she was a child. How does it make you feel as a parent? Do you ever have pause and say, well, maybe this is too much to tell a young kid?
Externally, it may feel it's too much, because as a young child, to hear that this relationships that you're building from your childhood is all just going to go away at the time of death is shocking, as she was saying. But most of us run away from reality, thinking that, oh, it's not going to go away, it's not going to go away. But I think it's nice that these kids are understanding these concepts from the very young age, so that it's always there at the back of their mind, and when the opportunity comes, they could use this knowledge and make the right decision.
Thank you very much, Molly. Anyone else? Yes. No, just stay where you are. The mics should flow to you.
As I was reading this purport, I was really relating to the point where it mentioned that because of our previous karma, we create temporary relationships. And I was just thinking back to 8th grade. I had 2 best friends, and my 2 best friends became friends. And then they started hanging out, and they had a great relationship. And I just felt that, and as I saw their relationship become stronger, like my relationship with my 2 best friends were getting weaker. So I was just thinking about how, because of our previous karma and their karma, those relationships are bound to occur, whether I like it or not. And like it says, all of this is going to be finished at death. But I was really thinking about almost every chapter in our life is sort of like death, where these relationships do end, and then you do have to move on and continue on with life. So I just reflect.
Did you feel pain in your heart when you realized you were losing your relationship with your best friends?
Yes, I did.
And then did you process it at that time in the way you're talking now? Or is it sort of an ongoing thing that you're processing now?
No, it happened a long time ago, and now everything's fine. But in the moment, it was definitely painful and not like easy to get out. I was often questioning, why is this happening? Like, why me? But now I'm glad it did occur, because I have a better understanding of relationships and maintaining them.
Thank you very much. Good to know. Anyone else? How do these types of instructions strike your ear?
I think definitely a lot of people like our age, my age, they don't really like to hear this kind of stuff, like at this age, because it's like depressing kind of. But like the more you think about it, I guess it is true, but like people don't like to hear about it because they don't want to believe in that. But like at the end of the day, it does come down to.
How do you feel?
I think it's nice to be aware at this age, at least, like about the subject. So later on, like, yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes?
Just kind of to add on to Anushrie's point, it's really nice to know that I've like been told from a young age, not told, but I've known from a young age that eventually like death is going to come. Like it isn't like it's like every day is like closer to death. Like you know that, and when you know that, it's kind of like you'll try harder to focus on relationships that do matter. And for us, that relationship is with Krishna. So yeah.
You want to say anything?
Just kind of adding on to what everyone else said. It is a very painful and like difficult thing to understand, and I still really struggle with it. But one thing nice to know, or that comforts me, is that relationships that you form with devotees and Krishna and Guru, they don't go under the same bodily relationships. So by maintaining them, they connect more to the soul and will actually last.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Did you have your hand up? Okay. Prabhu.
It's good. Okay. I'm glad she said what she just said, because that hearing these instructions also, I'm a 32-year-old married man, and it also, when I read this, I'm also disheartened. I'm like, oh, so what's the point of even making friendships in this world? But then at the same time, what you said is, I find it to be true.
But who said?
Huh?
Who said? What Avantika just said?
Yeah, is that her name?
Avantika.
Yeah, what she said is that the spiritual relationships are based on eternality. And I was just thinking of Narottam Das Thakur. He wrote this song lamenting about all of his friends and his teachers and people. I think Lord Chaitanya, and where did they go? And he wants to smash his head against a rock, and one could be like, oh, he's just lamenting for the temporary body, but it's on a different level. So then it makes you question. It's like, well, there's this instruction here, and then there's Narottam Das Thakur and Chaitanya Charitamrita that, Chaitanya Charitamrita seems to be all about relationships, and then we have Narottam Das Thakur lamenting about seemingly lost relationships. So that also gets me wondering, okay, like, how do we really understand this?
So how do we really understand it?
So my understanding is that I was hoping you'd elaborate, because you probably do a lot better than I can. But my understanding is that that material relationships. This is talking about material relationships, society, friendship, love, nationality, community, and Prabhupada has spoken a lot about people that relate the body. Like, I'm from here. This is my nation. This is my community. Like, they just relate on that level, but on the soul level. So the idea is that relationships that relate on the soul level, which are in connection with Krishna, are desirable. Those relationships should be sought out, and we shouldn't think like one might read this and be like, well, maybe I shouldn't have any friends because if I develop a friendship with someone at the temple, then they're just gonna leave me someday, and I'm gonna be depressed, or or I shouldn't get entangled with relationships because I'm gonna be disappointed, right? But that's not really our philosophy. We're personalists, so making relationships with fellow devotees and those who are interested in Krishna consciousness is desirable, is something we should really cultivate, because we really not only we nourish each other and we support each other. And sure, sometimes it may look like I don't, like my first brahmachari leader, I don't talk to him much anymore. Like I probably haven't talked to him in years. He lives in a different country and everything now, but I'm still friends with him. Our heart is in the same place. We still want to serve Krishna, and we want to please Krishna. And who knows, maybe even someday we'll be in the spiritual world to get together and service with each other. So yeah, that's just a little bit about how we could balance the two, how we could see the difference between what this is speaking about in devotional relationships.
Thank you, Rajananda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I was just thinking that, as kids, we all learned Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And when I had totally memorized it, I had performed when I was a little kid. But then as I got older, I realized, oh, wow, this is what I was talking about, the real stars in the sky. This is what it meant. When I actually memorized it, I didn't understand. I say this analogy because since, our kids are very young, we tell them that, this is a material world, there's a spiritual world, there's transcendental, you can transcend these modes of material nature. They hear this over and over. They know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When they're young, they don't get the whole point of, death and, birth. They don't understand everything. But I just feel it's the same way how I realized all the poems that I learned as a kid, the nursery rhymes. It kind of sinks into them as the time goes by, the constant giving them just the input. And then as it goes, they just mature so much. They realize that, oh, wow, this is what it meant. When life strikes and gives you bowls, and at that time you'll think, oh, wow, what am I, lamenting for? Then you have the knowledge already, since you're a child. But then when life puts you into different situations, you actually use the knowledge at that time and get more realized. So I absolutely think that it's so important for children to be exposed to it.
Thank you. And I didn't know there were other parts to the Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Especially philosophical. I'm going to have to look back into that. Bali Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, I think I was just remembering one realization from Prabhupada conversation. In the Second World War, when German, they used to send their sons for the war, and then they go to the church or whatever, they prayed, but their sons did not return from the war. So they lost faith in God. Oh, why he did not return from the war? He died. So Prabhupada was saying that it is not that he didn't ask permission from God, and he was giving an example of how Draupadi was devastated when her 5 sons are killed in the war by Aswathama in the night. Definitely there will be lamentation, moroseness, but at the end she did not lose faith in Krishna, neither she, cursed Krishna that, oh, because you did something like that. But there is a ground reality, sthita pragya, but at the same time, the pain of the mother is still revealed and expressed that way. So we should follow in the same path.
What's the same path?
Means not to be atheist. When there is a problem comes, people,
right.
Something become, antagonist, and they become against of God's will. But all situations we should be faithful.
And how does one do that?
How?
How does one face catastrophic events in one's life and not lose faith in God, and actually rise to the level of appreciating that this is an opportunity and rise above it?
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Dandavat.
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. May I?
Is
it okay?
Vaikuntha Nayaka Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj. Yes.
From Mysore?
Yes, Maharaj.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was actually I was also actually thinking that this knowledge can help us make even our material relationships very sweet. Um, I was actually it's, to give an analogy, right? Like in my corporate office, there's a huge garden, and the chief gardener takes care of all the plants. But there is one particular tree that he gives special importance to. So I asked him what is special about that tree. And he said that that tree had come to our company, our organization. It had been brought in by the Prime Minister. He had planted that sapling. And since it had been given to him by the Prime Minister, he actually went the extra mile to take care of the plants. That particular tree. Whereas the other plants, he thought, okay, that is mine. I can actually nourish it or I can actually not nourish it. It's totally my call. So I was thinking in similar lines. If we think that, okay, my wife, my child, it is my choice. I could actually abuse them or I could actually take care of them. I think that they are my property. But if we feel that, okay, this child has been given to me by Krishna for me to temporarily take care of, then just like that gardener who had a special affection for the tree given by the Prime Minister, I think we will give the extra attention to that child, right? Just my two thoughts. I don't know if it fits in, but yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
It was very beautiful. You're getting a lot of love there, it looks like, from the devotees, appreciating it. We heard some exotic bird in the background. Is that a Mysore type of bird?
Sorry, Maharaj, it was my little one, so sorry.
You have your little birds there, okay. Yes, okay.
Maharaj, I don't think it's an instantaneous event that you suddenly realize it and absorb it. It's a process of constantly, like waves and waves of realization that keep hitting you. Like a mother who's raising their child learns over time to hold on and then to let go and still stay attached for the sake of service, to make sure that the child is always following the path and not to hold on to them like we held on to them when they were 1 or 2 years old. It's no longer protective, more as guidance. And in that way, when we lose our family, our near and dear, we have to go through the stages of grief. But as we progress through the stages of grief, there are moments of realization where we understand the process. Like my father lost his mother, and I watched him go through the grief. And I know that when my turn comes, I will go through that grief. But I can see the waves, the birth and death that's happening again and again. And it's comforting to know that somebody knows better than me. And somebody out there has more sense than me and is looking out for me.
Thank
it's
you.
A very
that
comforting thought.
Very helpful. Go ahead.
Last week in your class, somebody asked this question, and you answered, which actually which stuck to me so much. You asked about how do we rise to the occasion, especially when we are facing a difficulty. You mentioned that how we should have spiritual mentors. And I was thinking about it all week long, that at the moment where I am in difficulty, I may not be able to see things as they are, but the mentors, spiritual mentors, if you follow their instructions because they think the best for you, and try to follow their advice, then that will help us to get out of this situation.
Thank you, Molly, for remembering that. And Srivata, I just comment before you say that there's Gaudiya Vaishnavism is a culture of guidance. If you notice all the great Mahajans, they all had a support system. They would take shelter of one another, and they would have their mentors. And also, we can assume, and part of the reason we're reading Bhagavatam and we hear these sections of Bhagavatam like Chitraketu, that such things will happen to us, because that's what's happening here in this plane of the universe in Martyaloka. And if we're preemptive about it, like preparing ourselves always, building our support system, and also, as Manjulakanta brought up, reviewing what is the process for dealing with this when it comes, and any incident in my life, how should I process it, even small incidents, then we're in that space where we're prepared to deal with all kinds of circumstances, whether big or small. And that's one of the main points that Krishna makes in the Bhagavad-Gita, is dhiras tatra namuyate. You have to become tolerant. And so we have to learn tolerance, and the way to do it is by guidance and also hearing good instruction regularly. If we step outside of that, and then we have to come back in at that time, we're not used to it, and it may take longer, and it may be a harder situation, like if you're not healthy, for instance, physically, and then you fall and you hurt yourself, it takes a lot longer to come back to health. If you're staying fit and then something happens, then you can snap back. And spiritually also, if we assume, hope for the best, assume the worst, and I keep myself always in a ready state without being a fanatic, and still being able to relate to everyone in a loving, normal way, but I still have this clear guidance from Bhagavatam and from my mentors, and I'm staying in a prepared mind, then I can take advantage of those situations as teachable moments, and also the processing may be not as arduous, and it may not be as long, as we'll hear from Chitraketu. Please, Srivats.
I was thinking about the question that was brought up after Balimardhan Prabhu's reflection about how does one go through certain circumstances without losing faith in Krishna. And I found that understanding Siddhanta completely in this situation is vital, and because if one is able to consolidate logically in their head about, like, this is what's happening right now, and understand from scripture and from the previous acharyas that there's a proper explanation to all of this, there won't ever be a situation where one will ask the question of, Krishna, why did you do this? Oh, Krishna, what's wrong with you? I became your devotee and now you're doing all of this to me. And such questions will never come up when one understands about how the Lord acts and what the Lord is like in general, like his attitude towards certain things in the material world. And I was thinking about that because oftentimes, a lot of the time, people will say like Krishna has a plan, but sometimes I feel like oftentimes if someone doesn't have as much experience in Krishna consciousness, they might look at that and think, why does Krishna's plan have something to do with giving me such great suffering? Why does Krishna get some weird, like, twisted joy out of this or something? And it's a genuine question people get. And I was thinking that this is when, like, I mean, as you said, Bhagavatam classes and all of this comes in so handy. And one is able to just, like, in such situations, immediately, like, the remembrance of such Siddhanta and verses just come into one's mind, and one is able to be like, oh, okay, this is what's happening to me right now. And immediately the pain is greatly, greatly reduced.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read a couple more verses, Pavani Bhakti, and then I'll read a couple more verses, and then Manjula Kanta.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was reflecting on this, that relationships are illusions. And I was remembering the recent episode where Anshu and Balram went to Denver. And both the parents kept texting them every day, Haribol, how are you doing? Let us know how things are going. And every day, Haribol from our side, no response from their side. And as parents, we kept saying, oh, take care that you go on the flight properly, you're standing on the... We kept giving instructions, no response. And that time, we both were thinking, are we parents or we are not? Like, who are we? And I really was not actually affected by this situation because, in my mind I was thinking yeah, he's our son, but eventually everything is going to go away. We have ourselves left our parents. So at the same time I was thinking that, at least we are in this consciousness, and it really didn't matter. But it does matter when the kids, they have their birthday and they said, oh, parents, we don't need parents. I'm like, okay, we did your birthdays all these years. But these are like the slap on your face sometimes, what's going on? But at the same time, we did the same thing for Krishna. He's like, we'll be always there for our children, and that the same way Krishna will always be there for us. And that's the bottom line. Like how we feel so bad for our kids if they go wrong, or if they don't come back, the same way Krishna is feeling so bad that, we left him. So I like that whole philosophy of, it helps us in the life. Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah, that's very practical. And that's why it's nice kids go off to the ashram for a while. Because, you get realization in that way. Manjula Kanta, go ahead and then I'll read.
Guru Maharaj, I also wanted to add that we look at devotees and think they have blissful lives. They do. They truly have blissful lives. I don't think I would exchange this for anything else, because the kind of association I live in, it's kind of a little bubble of swarga. But at the same time, when we associate with devotees and personally connect with them, we realize everybody has their own problems. Somebody's child is sick, somebody's financial issues, somebody crashed their car, someone else's kid is, there's so much going on in their lives. Watching devotees and seeing how they are able to rise to the occasion, they're like living proof of the fact that we can work in this world and still be able to detach from it and keep functioning at a higher level. I think that association from devotees is so important. Like you said, guidance, but also just watching them live their lives is such.
Right. That's why it's important to be in a community of devotees. And Bali Mardan Prabhu brought up that verse, Astita Dir Muni Uchite. Astita Di Muni is somebody who's actually assimilated the instructions of Bhagavad-Gita, is able to live in the world without being tipped over at every incident that seems to go against his or her plan. Let's hear a few more verses straight from the Bhagavatam. Everyone okay? Oh, go ahead.
I can wait for you to go.
What?
You can read. I can.
After you.
Okay. So just continuing what Sakeshwari Mataji was mentioning about her Twinkle Twinkle Little Star story, but in relation to the things that we hear as children, that everything's temporary, the material world's bad, spiritual world's good. And when you're younger, I feel like you just immediately agree to it. But then as you grow older, you actually have to digest and internalize what you're learning. And that process is pretty difficult. And especially what we're speaking about today, about all relationships being temporary, that was one of my greatest blockages or obstacles in Krishna consciousness, because I couldn't wrap my head around it. So I did a lot of searching for something that would keep me satisfied. And I was listening to this class about Queen Kunti and how she begged Krishna just remove all familial attachments. And I was like, yeah, if everything's temporary, I'd rather just be alone and curl up in a ball and not speak to anyone. But I think it was Achyuta Gopi who was speaking, and she said that the reason Krishna didn't take away those familial attachments was because all 5 Pandavas and Draupadi, they were all devotees. So by keeping your relationships and the people surrounding you being devotees, then you remain eternally connected. And she said that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj even said that the people you serve with here are the same people you'll serve with in the spiritual world. So I was very comforted by that.
Nice. Thank you very much for sharing your thought process. Okay, yeah. Never hold back. You don't have to hold back.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I just wanted to add 2 points. One, when we have a fear of losing, there's a regret in your mind. Oh, I wish I could have done these things for this person, So, one philosophy which I try to do is that make the best use of what we have the time today, because later on regret you cannot do anything. So, and then just to supplement my this theory, I saw when I went to the hospital for little Gauri once, and I met Nirukula Mataji there. And I was just moved actually seeing her there non-stop for every day. And I was even thinking about whether she's cooking for you or not. In my personal own way, sorry about that. But I think when I asked her, Mataji, this is hard, and we were all worried, it's sad mood. And I was moved by, what relationship we have. I said, what little Gauri has a relationship with Nirukula Mataji's. And then I asked Mataji, this is so inspiring to see you here. While looking that you are now driving, you came and you're going to the hospital. While I'm just watching you, I just feel so inspired. And she answered in one line. She said, this is what Prabhupada did for us. I was, after that, my mind completely, I was emotional, but it gives me strength. Hey, you know what? We have to do the best in that moment, what we can do. Then all the strength you can drive by following in the footsteps of the exalted devotees.
Now that one you're giving it. That's very practical. I think by discussing, we're getting a good synthesis, because, it's not curl up in a ball, and it's also not just embrace the material world and say, that the ideas in the Bhagavatam are, objectionable because they're too harsh and so forth. But there's a way in which, while we understand we're in temporary relationships, that we should do the best we can to express our love and appreciation for the devotees, and what to speak of other people. Sometimes we say, okay, just devotees, other people too in our environment, they may have a semblance. You never know what's going to happen with them as far as their future goes in their devotional service. Of course, Bhagavatam says avoid people who are against Krishna and to put up a fight, but Bhagavatam says even if you do avoid them so they don't become more offensive, you should pray for them. So there's not this sense of complete isolation that we only love devotees. No, we should love everyone. That's why we do Sankirtan, and we try to make relationships with all living beings. They're just on different levels. And I liked your point, Radhakripa Prabhu, about remember that what we have here, or any relationship with other living entities, is very special. So express it while you can. Try to take advantage now of giving them your heart in Krishna consciousness. And also, if you have something to say to people, say it while you can, because you never know when you're going to lose the opportunity. So now I'm going to read a couple more verses. This is number 3. O King, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and are sometimes separated due to the forces of the waves, the living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and are sometimes separated by the force of time. Purport: the misunderstanding of the conditioned soul is the bodily conception of life. The body is material, but within the body is the soul. This is spiritual understanding. Unfortunately, one who is in ignorance, under the spell of material illusion, accepts the body to be the self. He cannot understand that the body is matter. Like small particles of sand, bodies come together and are separated by the force of time, and people falsely lament for unification and separation. Unless one knows this, there is no question of happiness. Therefore, in Bhagavad-Gita 2:13, this is the first instruction given by the Lord. Dehinosmin yata dehe, komaran yauvanam jara, tata dehantara praptir, dhiras tatranamukhyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. We are not the body. We are spiritual beings trapped in the body. Our real interest lies in understanding this simple fact. Then we can make further spiritual progress. Otherwise, if we remain in the bodily conception of life, our miserable material existence will continue forever. Political adjustments, social welfare work, medical assistance, and the other programs we have manufactured for peace and happiness will never endure. We shall have to undergo the sufferings of material life one after another. Therefore, material life is said to be dukkha layam ashashvatam. It is a reservoir of miserable conditions. When seeds are sown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants and sometimes do not. Sometimes the ground is fertile and the sowing of seeds is unproductive. Similarly, sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by the potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. Purport: Maharaj Chitraketu is actually not destined to get a son. Therefore, although he married hundreds and thousands of wives, all of them proved barren, and he could not beget even one child. When Angira Rishi came to see the king requested the great sage to enable him to have at least one son. Because of the blessing of Angira Rishi, a child was sent by the grace of Maya. By the grace of Maya. That just reminded me, I wrote something in my notebook the other day. It says, the favor of Maya is not a benediction. And there's a way that it relates to our earlier conversation, because someone, as I think Srivasa said, there's a way in which I say, like, unless I'm favored in this mental construct I've created for myself here in this material world, unless it harmonizes with that, then I take it as I'm being tortured or somebody's being vindictive against me. And when I get some favor in the material world, then I think, oh, now you're talking. You're talking my language now. But actually, the favor of Maya is described in the section of Prahlad Maharaj and Nrsimhadev fighting with Hiranyakashipu, which is a so extreme case. But because of that, it assumes all other circumstances that we can observe in this world. Prahlad said to his father, or said to Lord Nrsimhadev, why would I want anything in this world? I already saw my father get all these so-called benedictions. And he couldn't handle them. If anybody could have handled it, it should have been him. But he couldn't handle it. And then, even when he was fighting with Nrsimhadev, he got loose, did Hiranyakashipu, and everyone's like, oh no, maybe his path was the right way. But it was only a little playful gesture by Nrsimhadev, like a cat lets a mouse go for a few minutes, and then, got you again. And Prabhupada explains there that these benedictions of the material nature are not benedictions at all. They're a fool's paradise. And so that's a Stita Dir Muni, as mentioned by Krishna in the Bhagavad-Gita. Here she sees that there's no benediction here in the material world. Shubha, Ashubha. Whether it's auspicious, so-called auspicious, or inauspicious, the material world, it's all bad. Because this is temporary material world. What do you think of all this? What? Yeah, she said as well, so give her the mic. Welcome to the class, by the way.
No, I think it's very well said and very true that this world that we do live in is very temporary, and when I look at life and I just look at what I've experienced in life, I've come to realize that over time, that it is absolutely true that a lot of this is very temporary, and it can fade within seconds. It can, we tend to hold on to these things, but they're all really attachments, and there will come a point when they'll actually fade. Youth will fade, money comes and goes, your professional success and power. It's all very temporary, and ultimately there is a deeper meaning to life than being attached to all of this material world.
Thank you. We needed that. Look up the
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I was just thinking about Chitraketu Maharaj. He had so many difficulties. He had the child, and the child passed away, and then, of course, and then he becomes the Gandharva, and he gets cursed by Parvati, and then he becomes Vritarasura. I was just thinking that even though all these things all was a negative in real sense, material sense, he achieved the highest. Even when he was fighting with Indra, he lost the war. So I was just trying to think that, of course, I'll never pray for difficulties, but when we are having a difficulty, most people will think that, in the material concept, they'll think that, oh my gosh, why is Krishna doing this and all. But in true sense, when you look into it, it's actually giving you an wide opportunity to, really advance ahead and just go back to Godhead. I was just reflecting on that.
Yeah, that's the classic prayer by Queen Kunti, where she mentions that Vipada santata sashvat tatra jagad guru bhavato darshanam yatsya apunar bhava darshanam. She actually prays like, let these difficulties come again and again. It's not like she's praying for them actually, but she's saying basically, let it come. It's happening anyway. It's not that they're going to stop if I say, please, no more. And it's like, okay, that's not how it works. So she's saying, let them happen. This is the way it is. But each time they do, let me take full shelter of you, Krishna. Let me use these as a way to remember you and take shelter of you. And I like what you said about the Lakshmi, this Chanchal, comes and goes, spend time amassing wealth, and then somehow or other, your 52nd cousin needs a brain transplant, and you got to pay for it. The first experimental transplant of the brain, and then whatever happens, it comes and goes. But in the Shastra, the Stita Dhir Muni is somebody who understands that we're on the material side. We get what we get. You don't have to be overheated about it. In fact, you shouldn't be. Just be methodical but dispassionate and doing your duty in the material world, and save the balance of your time for spiritual enlightenment. Somebody, yes, Krishna. Give Bhakta Krishna the mic. Everyone okay? Okay.
Hare Krishna, dear Srila Gurudev. Please accept my prostrated obeisances, all grace to Srila Prabhupada. When I heard the grace of Maya, I remembered you used to say, by grace of Maya bones comes dukhi, So, yeah.
That's from the verse. Yehi samsparshaja pokad dukkayona evate adyantavanta kontea nate shuramate Buddha. So a Buddha, an intelligent person, someone who's practiced DSI, deliberate spiritual intelligence, has come to the point of understanding that whatever kind of interaction I have with the material world, the kind of, what is it called, a Hladini samskar. Hladini means the happiness that I get in the material world. Those are very dangerous actually, because once the samskar goes in my mind, like I have an experience here in the material world, I try it, And oh, that was very nice. Even though the subsequent times aren't as nice, they never are in the material world. Like, how come I can't enjoy this? Still, the samskar of pleasure is there in the mind, so I keep trying over and over again, even when it's beaten to death. And it's no longer, that's horrible, no longer available. So, dukkha yona evate. Somebody considers that this kind of happiness in the material world, the yoni, it's the womb of little Dookie. And he comes out, here I am. And it's like, Dookie, please, no, don't come. And like, no, I'm here now. And it's like, where'd you come from? Well, it was your engagement with the material energy. You invested in it, you put your glance there, you went into it, and now the little Dookie's here. And you live with little Dookie. And that's what you get. So Krishna says, a wise person, Buddha is like, no more Dookie. I'm fine over here. I'll just keep calm and do my japa. Okay, go ahead, Prabhu. Is it you? Oh, okay. So I interrupted Prabhupada, and I'm going to read the Stita Deer Muni and then come back to the point about Maya. But this is a very important verse. I think we'll benefit from hearing from 256 in the Gita, where Krishna says, Dukeshvanu vigna manaha, sukeshu vikataspraha. You know, the sages, anyway. Vitaraga bhaya krodha stita dir muni uchite. One who is not disturbed in mind, even amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and who is free from attachment, fear, and anger. Free from what? Is called a sage of steady mind, a stita di muni. Here's the masterful, as all of them are, purport by Srila Prabhupada. The word muni means one who can agitate his mind in various ways for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a muni differs from other munis, he cannot be called a muni in the strict sense of the term. Nasa vrishir yasya matam nabinnam. Mahabharata Vanaparva. But a stita dhir muni, as mentioned herein by the Lord, is different from an ordinary muni. The stita dhir muni is always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. Nomas. Uvarimashta. He is called Prashanta Nishesha Manoratantam from the Stotra Ratna, number 43. Do you have that one somewhere? The verse? Govinda from the Stotra Ratna? Maybe we can find that one. It's not in the pink book, I don't think, but you can try. Or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. He is called a muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries, for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds, and he sees that his miseries, by the grace of the Lord, are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due only to the Lord's grace that he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active, and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated to the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry, even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success or no success, a Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. And now I'm going to finish the purport. I interrupted it. This is from Political Adjustments, Social Welfare Work, medical assistance and other programs we have manufactured for peace and happiness will never endure. We shall have to undergo sufferings. I said that one. And then did I read 4? Where was it that we stopped? Where's that? I'll read from the screen. There it is. Because of the blessing of Angira Rishi, a child was sent by the grace of Maya. But that child was not to live for long. Therefore, in the beginning, Angira Rishi told the king that he would beget a child who would cause jubilation and lamentation. King Chitraketu was not destined to get a child by providence or the will of the Supreme. Just as sterile grains cannot produce more grain, a sterile person, by the will of the Supreme Lord, cannot beget a child. Sometimes a child is born even to an impotent father and sterile mother, and sometimes a potent father and fertile mother are childless. Indeed, sometimes a child is born despite contraceptive methods, and therefore the parents kill the child in the womb. In the present age, killing children in the womb has become a common practice. Why? When contraceptive methods are taken, why don't they act? Why is a child sometimes produced so that the father and mother have to kill it in the womb? We must conclude that our arrangement of so-called scientific knowledge cannot determine what will take place. What is enacted actually depends on the will of the Supreme, on the Supreme Will. It is by the Supreme Will that we are situated in certain conditions in terms of family, community, and personality. These are all arrangements of the Supreme Lord according to our desires under the spell of Maya, illusion. In devotional life, therefore, one should not desire anything, since everything depends on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11, Anya bilashita shunyam yana karman yanavratam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhaktirutama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. One should act only to develop Krishna consciousness. For everything else, one should fully depend upon the Supreme Person. We should not create plans that will ultimately make us frustrated. Om Tat Sat. So the story goes on to describe, and we're not going to go into it now, except for a summary, that Chitraketu, then having been in this situation, received good instruction, reacted to it by taking full shelter of his gurus, Angira and Narada. He took initiation, a mantra, and he was so intent on contacting Krishna that he chanted the mantra with great sincerity and was able within a week to attain perfection. And he became the great sage. Chitraketu later became Vritrasura and then went back to Godhead. So there's a lot more to say about Chitraketu, and we'll hear in some subsequent classes about him. But before we go, we'll have a little bhajan. And then this morning I have to drive up to Sacramento because we have a flourishing community up there. And I'm going to stay overnight in Sacramento and then come back for the Sunday program because I can't miss it. It's just too nice. And thank you for coming this morning and for joining online. Let's sing a little bit. And if you need to stand up and stretch, you can do it. Anybody needs to. Yeah? Already did it? Or you did? I don't know how the sages at Naimisaranya did it. They were there for 1,000 years. But I do know one thing is when, of course, physically, I mean, one of the reasons to stay in his best, to stay fit is so that, I mean, the reason people perform Hatha Yoga in the first place, and from the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali barely mentions it. But in the context, he said it's so that you can sit and meditate. And one of the reasons to keep oneself fit is to be able to stay and listen. But it actually is an acquired taste. Oftentimes, if you get used to sitting and hearing for 10 minutes, that's what you're used to. So after at the 11-minute point, you start going like, what do we do now? But it's good to practice listening and having a spiritual conversation for long periods of time, don't you think? Yes. Okay. All right. So, what song are we singing? Let's sing. Let us sing a song in the morning tune, or let's sing the song about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kali Kukur. Haribol. Kali Kukur Kadan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was very much liked this song very much and used to sing it in his ashram. And I just have a deep memory of this song because I was with one of my favorite godbrothers and we were visiting Navadvip Dham together one year. And we were approaching the Gaudiya Mat. We went to see the Gaudiya Mat there. And my godbrother, who had a lot of association with Prabhupada and had gone there, was talking about how they used to sing this song. And then he was singing it. And I love the way he sings. We were just riding in a rickshaw and he was singing the song. Not the whole thing, but a few lines. And it just stuck in me. And whenever I sing this song, I remember being with a very beloved godbrother and going up there to those hallowed grounds where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had walked and also his disciples who followed him. And this song is about all the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in summary, but it begins by saying that Kali is like a mad dog. So if you feel like you're being chased by a pit bull these days, you're not alone. It's what's happening in Kali Yuga. And she says the way that we overcome it is by taking shelter of Sri Sachinandan in Kali Yuga. Kali Kukur Kadan Jadi Chao Hai. For anyone who wants to dance, there's dancers in the back. Kali Yuga Pavana Koli Boy Nashana Sri Sachinandana Gao Hai. Advaita Papujita Gora. Nimani Vishwambar Srinivashishva Bhakta Samuha Chitta Chora. Nadiya Shastradharmaya Purishva Nam Pravartana Shura. Dihi Janna Shikshaka Nyasikula Nayaka Madhavarada Baba Pura. Sarvabhaumashoranda Gajapati Dharana Ramananda Poshana Vira. Upananda Padhana Sanatana Palana Haridas Bodhana Dhira Rajaras Pavana Vishramata Shatana Kapati Vikatana Kama Shukha Bhakta Palana Shuksha Jnana Tarana Chala Bhakti Dushana Rama Kali Kukur Padam Jadi Chao Hai Kali Juga Pavana Koli Boy Nashana Shisha Chena Nana Gao Hai Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So we had Guru Puja already. And I'm going to walk out now because I have to drive up and make it for the program in Sacramento, if you'll please forgive me for walking out on you like this. But I'll see you tomorrow. And then right after this, we have announcements. They're very important announcements because they keep us focused on our goals here at ISV. And then after that, there's prasadam for everybody in Santa Clara, San Mateo, San Francisco, Contra Costa, Alameda. Where? Mountain View is not a county, is it? Is it Santa Clara? Are we in Santa Clara County? Okay, that includes Mountain View. And Santa Cruz County. Let's not leave out our friends in Santa Cruz County. Everybody invited for prasadam right here. Text everyone, let them know. We can feed everyone in every county. Please come on down. Thank you very much. Vancha kalpadrivascha kripasinabhevacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Gaur Premanande Haribol. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Stita di mune uchate.
Hare Krishna.